The deal that changed my business didn't come from an ad. It didn't come from a cold email, and it didn't come from a funnel. It came from a relationship that I had spent 2 years building before I had ever needed anything from it. I've spent 10 years working alongside some of the biggest, most connected people on the planet. Names like Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, Russell Brunson, founders doing hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And the one thing every single one of them has in common is not their product, not their marketing, and not even their team. It's their network. Today, I'm going to be breaking down exactly how to build one, even if you're starting from zero. And I'm going to show you the mistakes that are costing founders millions of dollars in closed deals, bad hires, and broken partnerships. So let's get into it. Before we get into it, let me be clear about what I mean when I say $1 billion network. I'm not talking about having 1 million followers. I'm not talking about being in a mastermind with a fancy name. I'm talking about a network that's $1 billion in value to you over your time. The right introduction at the right moment, a partner who compresses 5 years of growth into just one, and an investor who believes in you before you've even proven it. A mentor who has already made the mistakes you haven't made yet. The kind of network that doesn't happen by accident, and it doesn't happen by collecting cards. It's built deliberately, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Step 1, get clear on who you actually need. Here's what most people get completely wrong. Right from the start, they go into networking mode without any clarity on who they are actually trying to connect with. They show up everywhere, add everyone, and try to be top of mind to the whole world. And it works for nobody. The most connected people that I know are not the ones with the most amount of contacts. They're the ones who are crystal clear on exactly who they need in their corner at each stage of their growth. They're specific, they're intentional, and they're patient. So before you do anything else, answer this one question. Who are the top 10 people, if you had a genuine relationship with them, that would change the trajectory of your business in the next 3 years? Not 100 people, 10. Write them down, get specific, because your network strategy starts here. Step 2, lead with value, always. This is the part that nobody wants you to hear because it requires patience, and a lot of it. The biggest mistake founders make when trying to build relationships with people at a higher level is leading with what they need. They get in rooms, they get the introductions, and then they send them a DM to reply, and immediately they're pitching them. Immediately they're asking, immediately they're taking. That makes no sense to me. And the relationship dies before it even starts. The people that I've built the strongest relationships with, I wasn't thinking about what I could get from them. I was thinking about what I could bring, an introduction that they'd find valuable, a piece of information relevant to something that they're working on, a referral, a kind word in the right room at the right time. Give first, give consistently, and give without expectations. Not because it's a strategy, but because it's the right way to operate. And people worth knowing will notice what you're doing. The founders who tried this shortcut, who lead with the ask, who treat relationships like a transaction, they burn bridges they didn't even know they burned. And those burnt bridges have a cost that never shows up on your spreadsheet. Let me tell you a story here. One of the deals that I crossed over, it was right in the beginning of around 2020, late 2019, was a client came to me and said, hey, I have someone that I think you could help. And that was because they were completely having issues with their Facebook ad policy. And they kind of went down the entire road of not really telling me who their name was. When that entire deal came to fruition, I ended up getting on a call with this person. This person ended up being Dean Graziosi. Now, with Dean and their advertising access and everything else they had issues with, we realized it was one thing. It had nothing to do with Facebook. It had nothing to do with anything that on platform that people blame. It was one thing simply. They just didn't understand in their internal team what it would take to actually run policy compliant directly from the ad all the way to the copy, all the way to the landing page and everything from there. We went to Dean and said, hey, if we can turn this around for you over the next 90 days, get you the results you want, get you the KPIs that you want to hit with, would this be worth your business? And he said, absolutely. What is it going to cost? My immediate response to him was, I'm going to do this for free for you for the next 90 days. In exchange that if I do this and we can turn around your metrics on Facebook as a marketer, as an agency to give you the results that you want, I want one thing in return. And this is what I like to call fair exchange. And in that fair exchange is I want to be able to have a shot at running your business's marketing in the future. I'm not saying we need to tie this down immediately, but just let me do the work. Let me show you what we're capable of doing, and then I'll let you make that decision. Me doing that, it literally put Dean in the context of a conversation behind the eight ball, in the sense of he was taken back because usually people come to him and say, Dean, let me pitch you. Dean, let me do this, all this good stuff. Where we came from the perspective of let me just provide as much value. And if we don't deliver, no one wins. If we do deliver, you win. And in exchange, all I'm asking is a shot at your business. And that ended up turning into Dean becoming one of our best clients for the longest time, running some of the biggest events for them. The referrals that came from him were phenomenal. And as well, he gave me a testimonial sharing this exact thing that I did for him.
In all my years of doing business, it's very rare I come across a company like GrowRev that really understands direct response marketing, understands our mission, while simultaneously helps us do it the right way, to be in alignment with Facebook, which you know how all that changes so much, to give us any breakthroughs they discover, they help us over and above. So this is just a quick video to say GrowRev is on the short list of people I've worked with that we really respect, and you should definitely give them a shot.
Step 3, get in the right rooms. This one sounds simple, but it's actually not, because most founders are spending times in the wrong rooms. They're going to events their peers go to, they're going to masterminds filled with people at the same level as them, and they're already at, and they wonder why their network isn't pulling them forward. Your network will not grow faster than the rooms you're willing to get into, and the rooms that matter are the ones where the real decisions get made. Real deals get done with real relationships get built. Those rooms have a price of entry. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's time, and sometimes it's just the courage to reach out and ask to be there. I've paid to be in more rooms that felt so expensive for me at the time that every single one of them paid me back more than I put into it. Not always immediately, but eventually. Figure out what those right rooms are for where you want to go. Not where you currently are, but where you want to go. And then figure out what it costs to get in them and pay it. Now, let me tell you a story. Back when I was first getting started in this entire industry, one of the things that I wanted to do was get into this mastermind called the War Room. It was run by the digital marketer and the traffic and conversion guys at the time. This mastermind at the time was about $30,000. And we were nowhere near that in terms of being able to justify that on our yearly income. However, I jumped in and took the charge and said, we're going to do this. What that translated into, the very first time that we went to the mastermind, I remember being this in Southern California, and I went up to a person there sitting at the bar, having a conversation with them, and we started chatting about what we did for business. Happened to be this person I was talking to was literally the biggest guy that we were running our event strategy for our competitors for, and he was the biggest guy that they put on a pedestal. Having the conversation with them, just sharing them what we're doing, specifically from a marketing perspective, from an advertising perspective, from a show-up perspective, he's like, you're smart. How long have you been doing this for? And I said, actually, not that long. And I was completely vulnerable. And that vulnerability of the conversation that we had at the bar translated later on into not only getting the number one guy in the business in the event industry, but also getting their second competitor that they made the intro to, which blew my mind. That one move with the $30,000 at the time that put a lot of fear into me to actually jump over the edge and get it done, translated into millions of dollars of business over the next 2 to 3 years. So get in the right rooms and find out where your end target person's actually in and do whatever it takes. Barter, negotiate, pay, doesn't matter. Get in those rooms. Step 4, follow up like your business depends on it, because it does. The single biggest waste I see in networking is the lack of follow-up. Someone meets a person who could genuinely change their business. The conversation goes well, there's real connection, and then there's nothing. No follow-up, no next step, no reason for the relationship to continue. And then they wonder 6 months later why the relationship never went anywhere. Follow-up is where relationships actually get built on, not in conversation, in the second, the third, the one you have 8 months later when you send them something you saw that reminded you of what they were talking about or what they were working on at the time. Most people don't follow up because they don't want to seem needy or pushy. But here's the truth. If you led with value, if you showed genuine interest, Following up is not needy, it's consistent. And consistency is what separates the people who build the real relationships from the people who just collect contacts in their desk. Build a system where it doesn't have to be complicated. Just make sure that the people worth staying in contact with actually hear from you more than just once a year with a Christmas card that means nothing. Now, let me explain to you a story that happened. I met a client about 2 years ago, and this person was introduced to me by one of our vendors at an event that we were going to. And the vendor said, hey, you need to meet this person because they need help with their supplement business. And I said, sure. Jumped in the meeting with them, had a quick drink. Next thing you know, I live in Canada, they live in Australia. Jumped back on a follow-up phone call when we got home, and I said, hey, let's just jump back on and kind of follow through with this conversation and see what we can do. At the time, they weren't a right fit for us in the sense that they were just too small of a business. However, I provided them so much value on that call of what they need to do in their business at the current given state. And I said, when the time's ready, don't hesitate to reach back out. Would love to help you take your business and scale it from there. Now, the conversation just didn't end there. Every so often, I would send them an email, I would send them a text message or a WhatsApp and just check in and see how things are going. Is there any other value that I can provide with you? Hey, we've just tried this with a new Facebook ad strategy for your business. You should probably implement this consistently month after month, quarter after quarter, and year after year. That was 2 years of consistently doing this. I was just recently in Vegas for an event. I come home and I look at my email and the literal email says, Rohan, thank you for all the value that you provided to me and for my business over the last 2 years. We're ready to get started. What is it going to take? Don't care what it costs. Let's get going. Protect your network like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. Here's something that nobody talks about. A network can be built and a network can be destroyed, and it can be destroyed a lot faster than it was built. One bad introduction, overpromise that doesn't deliver, one situation where you put your name behind something and you shouldn't have, the trust you spent years building can take a serious hit from every single decision without thinking it through. So be selective of who you introduce who to. Be careful about what you endorse and be honest about what you can and can't deliver, because your reputation in your network is the currency that makes everything else work. And reputation is one thing that's genuinely hard to rebuild once it completely takes a hit. Treat every introduction that you make like you're putting your name on it, because you are. Let me give you a story about how I protect my network. About a year and a half ago, I got introduced to this company. They wanted me to come on and open my doors to them. And I straight up had the very first conversation. And I said, guys, if you want me to come in and help, 1, I need to test your product. 2, I need to be an avid user of it. And 3, really has to deliver value to me and my business. Because if you want me to open up these doors that you know that I can bring to you, it has to be done in a fair exchange. I think I've talked about that in this video already. They're like, yeah, sure, we'll do that for you, all that good stuff. 30 days into working with these guys, they literally start hounding me every single day. Hey, we want an intro to this, we want an intro to that, blah, blah, blah. And it turned into such an annoyance for me where I was like, if this is how they're treating me, imagine how they're going to treat the network that I bring to them. In that exact instance, I just called the owner and I said, hey, man, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to work with your company, but it just seems like we're just on a culture fit. And I'm not a fit for you, because my network isn't someone that's just going to switch over tomorrow. They're going to require understand the value of what you bring. They're going to want to see that I'm using it. And as well, they're going to actually want to be taken care of. The way you guys are currently communicating with me, there is zero communication. It's all transactional, and I want nothing to do with it. So let's part ways here and never, ever talk about this again. And I respect you and what you're building, and I hope you respect me and what I'm building. That conversation took him so off guard that he was trying to backstep and do everything that he can, but it had already put such a bad taste in my mouth that I was not willing to give anyone else in that company a chance for me or my network. We've talked about how to build. Now let's talk about what kills it. Because I've watched founders make mistakes over and over and then cost them every single time. Mistake number 1, networking up without anything to offer. If you're trying to get into the rooms with people who are significantly further ahead of you, you need to be honest about what you bring. Enthusiasm is not enough. Figure out what you genuinely have to offer to your current level and lead with that. Be vulnerable. I already talked about that. Or mistake number 2, transactional relationships. The people worth knowing can smell a transactional relationship immediately. If you only show up when you need something, you will eventually stop getting a response completely. Full stop. Mistake number 3, neglecting the people already in your corner. I see this consistently. Founders are so focused on building up that they stop nurturing the relationships that they already have. The people who believed in you early, who sent you referrals when you were figuring it out, who showed up for you before you were ever worth showing up for, those are the relationships that deserve more of your attention than anything else. Mistake number 4, confusing your audience with a network. Having followers is not the same thing as having a network. A network is people who will pick up when you call, who will make the introductions on your behalf, who will tell you the truth when you ask them and what they think. An audience watches, a network acts. Build both, but know the difference. Mistake number 5, waiting until you need it. This is one of the ones that hurts the most to watch. A founder hits a ceiling or a crisis or a moment where the right introduction would have changed everything for them, and instead they haven't invested in the right relationships that would have made that possible. You build a network before you need it, not during. Now, here's a crazy story for you. A few years ago, I ended up getting a lawsuit served to me from a very big company. And this lawsuit was something that completely took me off guard. And I was like, I have no clue on how to deal with this. I just sat down, took a minute, and just kind of went for a walk and thought about it. And I was like, who in my network has probably been through something at this caliber and had to deal with a lawsuit of this level? And I just made a list of 10 people that I knew that would literally answer their phone immediately if I called them or shot them in text, be like, hey dude, I need your help. Kim, can I get 10 minutes of your time? I shit you not. 10 out of 10 of those people all said, call me, you're here to help. Called every single one of them, told them exactly the same story. 5 out of the 10 of them ended up having to deal with some actual problems similar to what I went through. Out of the 5, 2 of them actually had the right legal firms for me to talk to compete against this lawsuit. Both of those connections turned into a 10-month battle between the company that I was going with, but the 2 law firms that came literally saved me millions of dollars that could have been wasted from being with the wrong lawyers, the wrong advice. It compressed 3 years of time into 10 months. And literally all that came from was me just asking them and being completely vulnerable versus just wasting money on lawyers that I probably wouldn't have even been able to help me in the first place. So here's what I want you to take away from this entire thing. Your network is not a nice to have. It's a business asset. And like any asset, it requires deliberate investment, consistent maintenance, and protection. Get clear on who you need, lead with value, get in the right rooms, follow up consistently, protect your reputation, and avoid the 5 mistakes that are costing founders more than they realize. The founders who do this, who build genuine relationships with the right people over time, they have an advantage that never shows up on an ad account or a funnel, but it shows up everywhere else. Start building, not tomorrow, today. Because the best time to build a network that changes your business was 5 years ago. The second best time is right now. You have the framework. You know how to build the network, what to do right now and what to avoid. But here's the thing. A framework only takes you so far. At some point, you need to see what it actually looks like when it works at the highest level possible. So in the next video, I'm going to show you exactly that. I'm going to walk you through exactly how I got into rooms with Dean Graziosi, Tony Robbins, and Russell Brunson, and how the network we just talked about building directly led to helping them generate $11 million. Not in theory, not a case study that I read about, something that I was personally a part of that's a real world version of everything that we just covered. So watch that next. So see you in the next one.